I think what YouTube is doing is great. A lot of people laugh at that. You know, the people in the TV business laugh at it because the numbers, the dollars that YouTube is spending relative to what a TV studio would spend on a TV show is pretty tiny. So you hear a lot of people kind of laughing. YouTube's just throwing around play money. You know, it's never going to work. But I think the strategy of let 1,000 flowers bloom and provide some fertilizer to that system. I mean, the problem is that it's been very hard to make high quality content for YouTube until now. And I think YouTube coming along and throwing some money at the problem is a good thing. And I think there will be some pretty compelling content that will get created. Not all of it will be good, but I think plenty of it will be good. At least enough that they will be able to, you know, create some channels on YouTube that people will really actually care about, and potentially, you know, you'll see something emerge out of that that'll be, you know, what people consider must-see content. And so I think all that's good. We don't view it as our firm's expertise to do that kind of funding, and I think that it's smart that YouTube is. And I think that other people who have you know, meaningful audiences in online video would be wise to do the same thing, to underwrite some content development to try to, you know, really develop the audience on their properties and get more people watching content there as opposed to on cable. I actually think the cable channels themselves, Showtime or HBO or whatever, can adapt to whatever distribution system makes sense. I mean, if watching shows on the internet emerges as the new model and watching shows on cable starts to wane, I think that the people in the content business can migrate there. So I think that there's a bright future for creating content on the internet, video content on the internet. I want to make sure people who haven't asked the question get a chance.
Kickstarter's gotten a lot of attention recently for its success, and in a lot of minds has sort of proven the business model that crowdfunding works. Can you talk about the implications of that success for the industries that it supports, and also sort of some of the verticals, whether Kickstarter wants to move in those directions or not, what other verticals besides sort of creative projects are a more natural fit for crowdfunding?
Well, so I think Kickstarter is pretty committed to sticking where it is in creative projects. Now, some of those creative projects will turn into companies, but when those projects come onto Kickstarter, they're projects with a finite life, and that's where they want to be. They're not going to go into the philanthropic crowdfunding market, which I think has great potential, and they're not going to go into the equity crowdfunding market, which I think has great potential. So they've kind of staked out their territory, and they think there's a lot of value to continue to do what they're doing, and I happen to agree with them. But I do think that you will see, in fact, it looks like they're going to change the regulations, the securities regulations, to allow crowdfunding equity to actually develop. So I think there'll be a business there, and I think also, you know, I'm on the board of a company called Donors Choose that does crowdfunding for teachers' projects in public school systems around the country, and I don't know if the numbers are public, so I won't say them, but the amount of money that they're generating every year via crowdfunding model to classrooms is phenomenal. It's a big number. They've been very, very successful. So I think we'll see more and more of that kind of thing happen. Kickstarter, to me, is really interesting because there are lots of products that people want to buy, and and they're willing to pay upfront for the product before it's even been made because they can't get it anywhere else, and they think it's a great thing and they want to have it. So the product side of Kickstarter, things like the TikTok watch band and the iPhone dock, that's turning into a really vibrant category, and it's really kind of a combination of venture capital, meaning this, I like this, I want to fund this, and actually buying the product, kind of combined into one thing. And when it works really well. The biggest projects on Kickstarter are those kinds of projects for the most part. But then also, I think filmmakers, musicians, video game creators who have followings. So Tim Schafer has raised over $2 million for Double Fine Adventure. He did that because he's made a bunch of great video games over the years, and there's maybe 50 to 100,000 people who would buy any video game he made. So he puts up Double Fine Adventure and, just totally kills it. And then I think what happens is, other people like filmmakers will see that and say, well, if a video game, if a well-known video game developer can raise $2 million for a video game project on Kickstarter, maybe a well-known film director could raise $5 million for a film project. And so I think, my guess is sometime this year we're going to see some well-known film director who's maybe a cult film director who's got a following of people who will see every single movie that director makes. I think it would be pretty simple to raise $5 million on Kickstarter for somebody like that. And the thing about that is that the fans benefit because they put up the money to see the film made, and in return they get a copy of the film to watch. And the director benefits because the director owns all rights to the film, has complete creative control, can make whatever film they want. There's no studio, there's no finance, there's no financial investor to crimp their style, whatever, and they capture all the economics of that project. So it's a pretty compelling model, and I think we've really just scratched the surface of what a company like Kickstarter could do.
We've seen, I guess, sort of an explosion of social bookmarkers like Pinterest and Supply. What do you think about the future of that space and monetizing that?
I haven't thought a ton about the monetization piece of that space. We invested in one of the real sort of pioneers in the social bookmarking space back in 2005 called Delicious, and they sold out to Yahoo pretty quickly, and it was link bookmarking, not image bookmarking. I think it's a really powerful model that people want to save things that they like on the web. In the case of Delicious, people were saving links that they found that they wanted to remember. And I think particularly Pinterest with the service they've created, people want to save visual images that they find on the internet. And I think the use cases are actually pretty broad. Some people just do it as a way to kind of, share the things that they find with their friends. My wife uses it, in a much more kind of project basis. Like if she's doing a design project for, like, my son went from being a preteen to being a teenage boy, and all of a sudden the room that he was living in wasn't working for him anymore. So he said, "Mom, I want to have like a teenage boy's room, right?" So she and my son just basically started taking stuff and slapping it onto Pinterest and like sharing, thoughts, and that's the way they use it. So I think Pinterest is the kind of the winner in that category, in the same way that sort of Facebook was the winner in its category and Twitter was the winner in its category, and I think Pinterest is in my mind, is the winner in that category. And people tell me, well, guys won't use Pinterest, they'll want to use their own site, for like guys' clothing, but I don't think that's true. I think people will just all use Pinterest.
Do you think secondary trading